minutes after now, and I know that Mr. Chuck is raring to go. Does everybody know everybody here? Does everybody know everybody? Dave? Okay. All right, so we don't have to introduce ourselves. We're obviously here for charter review, and this meeting is to schedule things, get organized. I think we all need to take a deep breath and promise that we're all going to be polite to each other, listen to everybody, and try to understand what everybody's position is, and then obviously you have to make your own decision, but I know that we're all mature adults and we can do that. And here comes Mr. Martin. We'll give him a minute to unpack. How are you tonight?
I can.
Speak with me.
Yeah, just ready to get going.
All right, well, good. Anyway, we're here to try to get organized. Obviously, the purpose is to review the charter. It's not necessary that we need to make changes, but with the law, we are required to review and discuss whether or not changes need to be made. I think it's every 5 years. And in the past, we're looking at an agenda that was prepared many years ago. There was a swearing-in commission, but we're not doing that tonight. The law department has sent us a letter, which we should all read at our leisure before the next meeting, I suppose. And then that brings us to the important election of chairman and secretary. So why don't we move into that? Anybody have any nomination for who they want to nominate for chairman?
I nominate you, Dave.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Loparo.
Second.
Thank you.
I'm
Other?
sorry, was that you?
I think that was David.
Oh, I'm sorry, my eyes were on, sorry.
That's all right. Anybody else, any other nominations for chairman?
Close the nominations.
Any other ones? All right, well, I guess that means I'm going to be chairman. I appreciate the nomination from Chuck. Secretary, Josephine, are you normally the secretary?
You know, I have been, but that's to be among the group,
All right.
and evening commitments have changed for me, so I suggest that.
Feel free to nominate a secretary, is that what you're saying?
I think that would be prudent.
She's so polite, isn't she? She's wheeling towards the door.
No, I just thought some of my evening commitments, and so.
I understand.
You wouldn't want to infringe on anybody else's.
Right. Well, I had to ask the question because I've never been on the charter before and commission before, and I didn't know the answer. So, with that being said by Josephine, are there any nominations for secretary?
Could I ask a question? As far as, you know, what the requirements are, if you're not here, we still tape. I see you have an audio tape.
Well, I do that for my convenience.
Mm-hmm.
She's a little temperamental, this little baby. She's old, but then I download it. But
and would you still?
No,
if you weren't here.
No, would I transcribe what you recorded? No, I think it probably should be who your secretary is.
Okay, and then
because this recording won't be there.
And then the secretary would take and transfer the information to you because it's a public record. How would all that work?
You know, I would imagine that it would then become part of the file. Yeah, you would just. You know, just like cemetery.
And is it more than just doing the minutes here, or transfer, or keeping notes of who would prepare the agenda, and then who would notify the commission and inform everybody as to a meeting, just reminder, or just a change in the meeting?
Since I've been on it since day one, every meeting, the minutes are taken and we get a copy at the next meeting.
Well, who prepared the minutes?
Well,
The
I've been
secretary,
doing-
excuse me, the secretary, I've got them all here, takes it down, and she, when it's done here, everything is set for, there's all the minutes way back. We get a copy of you said this, you voted this, and it shows everything.
Well, you have to keep track of all the votes, that's
That's
for sure.
what, yeah, right.
And
well,
because of,
to your question, I've done the last, this would be the fifth, but, you know, and then I was here for 89 when you were part of it, so.
okay, I've never been on a charter review before, have I?
Well, you,
I
the
don't think
minutes
so.
indicate your name's in here. I have all the minutes from 89, being present. Being
Anyway.
That was
present.
another one.
I think because of the public records law, we wanna make sure that we keep
Right.
track of everything. I would really like to see if Josephine could do it, and then if she's not here, I will agree to take the minutes for that night. But, and then I'll transcribe them, but I would think it would be better and easier and streamlined better just for just, if
As
that's
long as
okay.
there wasn't a conflict, I don't.
You don't have a problem? I did it.
No, I just, yeah.
Okay.
Peggy.
Well,
And
then,
I'll
Peggy, I
agree.
think, has nominated Josephine.
That's what we
I'll
get.
second Josephine. Are there other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Peggy.
Well,
I just don't know if anyone will second me.
I'll roll fill in if you can't be here though.
Yeah, just took her.
It's not. Ernie's not on here.
Hearing no other, no second, why don't we, Josephine, will you serve as secretary then?
Sure.
We appreciate that and all your efforts in the past.
Thank you for the help.
Okay, so now we need to go to discuss, scheduling, meeting dates. I think that, what, in the past, Josephine, have we met
We
twice?
gotta take a vote on it,
What?
on the
On
nominations, the nominations.
Oh, are you serious? If we need to, well, that's fine.
Well, I'm just, if you're gonna follow the, you know, I just think it would be.
You know, with,
All right, that's fine.
okay, did you wanna go back to, yours?
I guess, all those in favor of, Dave Engle as chairman, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, I'll be chairman. All those in favor of Peggy, or excuse me, as Josephine acting as secretary, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing no nays, Josephine will serve as our secretary. Thank you, Joe. So, we need to then discuss, scheduling dates for meetings in the past. Josephine, and I know Ken has been on it, I'm not sure if other people have.
Well, certainly Mr. Van.
Oh, Mr. Loparo, yeah, he's
Mr.
probably been
Loparo
on it.
has, and Peggy hasn't been part of the Charter Review Commission, but certainly from 89, your presence
Right.
was
Right.
always at those meetings. Historically, and I'll just bore you with these details, it has been a 5-6 month project, regardless of what anyone has said or been told. The meetings have started every other week, and if there was a time crunch, they got closer and tighter. You as a commission could do anything you want. You could have shorter, more often minute meetings, or you could have lesser meetings and have them more, have longer. That really is your schedule, because in the past, and do anything you really wanna do, there was a dissection of the charter, paragraph by paragraph, section by section. How you wanna delve into it, tear it apart, that's will be your prerogative. But you have to determine as a group what is the best method of approaching it. You know, charter review commissions in the past, some have held public hearings where 2 people have showed up. You know, now with the age of the media, the internet, we could have something on the internet where you could have in the charter review process. You can lighten your load, is what I'm saying, by getting information out there, getting responses from people. Questionnaires, research, that all takes time. That didn't really answer your question, so it's all up to you if you want to do it every other week, once a month, 3 times a week.
Can I make a proposal?
Sure, David.
I'd like to propose that we meet every other week on Wednesdays at 6:30. The calendar up there seems to be pretty open on Wednesdays through December at this point.
May I?
Well, we've got Christmas Eve there, I don't know how it falls there, maybe we can swap or something.
Yeah.
May I throw out a supplement to that? I
Sure.
agree. I would like to suggest we meet the second and fourth Wednesday from 6:30 to 8:30. We have a start time and an end time, and we end at that time. And that we start December 10th we meet, but that would be it for December. And then we move into January, and we meet twice a month unless a special meeting is required. And we have our final meeting no later than sometime in May, so our final report can be given to council by June 1st.
I have just one thought, if this was, I am going to be going back and forth, flying back and forth just to be here at this meeting. And, so I was hoping that we could set a time where it's either that you could do, if you did Wednesday this week, do Wednesday the following week or something, as opposed to alternating every other week. And that would work within my schedule.
So you're thinking every week?
Well, at least twice in a month time, which we'll still have 2 back to back, and still.
Oh, I see, because you're gonna be here a week and that's, I see what you're saying, okay. You gotta be more clear, John.
I'm sorry.
No,
Sorry.
that makes sense to me, but I'm flexible. You look like you were gonna say something, John.
As long as it's not council planning days of that, because I haven't missed any in 40 years and I don't intend to miss any.
They're gonna be on
Well, I think what
Wednesday
Mr.
night.
Milstein said is that Wednesdays are pretty,
As long as there's no meetings, that's fine with me.
I don't, yeah, and I don't have any problem meeting twice in December, the 10th and the 17th. I mean, we should try and get rolling as best we
Yeah.
could.
Okay, let me just jump in here. I think what I'm hearing is that everybody's okay with Wednesday for sure. Does that work with you, Ken? All right, so Wednesday works for everybody. So then the question is, how do we schedule them on Wednesday? Joe, I think, would like to schedule them Wednesday and Wednesday, which I understand why you wanna do that, and I think we can do that. Do you have a problem with that, Peggy?
The second Wednesday is totally open, that's fine, so if we went maybe the second and third Wednesday of the month, I
Sure.
could compromise on that. We have council meetings on the first and third Wednesday of the month, but I could miss the third Wednesday before I could miss the first Wednesday. So I would compromise, and if we started at 6:30, I could come here for an hour and then leave, so that would be a compromise for me.
I don't know about anybody else, they were that confused the heck out of me, so
Yeah.
Sorry.
What, are you with, you know?
And Glenwillow,
Where?
Glenwillow, we
okay.
meet on Wednesdays. So the second and third Wednesday I could do,
Oh,
if
Oh,
that
you
works
could
for
use
you.
the
Yeah,
second and
yes.
third one, all right,
yeah, we
okay.
had to pick up that little thing in
I'm
the
sorry.
beginning.
All right, and then second and third Wednesdays, you don't have to leave early, is what you're telling me.
No, I could be flexible. Definitely the second Wednesday of the month is totally open. And then the third Wednesday of the month, we do have a work session and a Maya presence is not always needed. So it would be, I could do that.
Okay, all right.
Why don't we decide on December and January now to accommodate Joe? And then we can look at it in January, you know, look forward to February and March and say these are the dates, because everybody's got,
Okay, so
If
I,
you can't make it, George can't make it too.
okay, so I think we're pretty much saying that November is not, we're not gonna meet in November because next Wednesday is Thanksgiving Eve and we all have family commitments. So we could start with the second and third Wednesday of December, which would be 10 and 17 at 6:30. Does that work with everybody? All right.
Probably not gonna be able to make the 10th one, but that's okay.
Well,
That's because I had already planned a time out of town and
I
it
understand.
conflicts with that, so
Okay, all right, so, but that, all right, but
otherwise I'm okay.
okay, all right, so that's what we're gonna try to do, we're gonna do second, third Wednesdays, we're gonna start with the 10th and the 17th, and we'll go from there.
6:30, right?
Let's do it 6:30, and be out of here definitely by 8:30, and I'm always happy to have an early meeting end, as I'm sure most people are. Does that work for you, Josephine?
Yeah, right now.
Okay.
What about in January, you're gonna try to set that one?
Well, what if I had a calendar?
Oh, well, we have
Oh,
that.
all right, Josephine's got it. Don't give me that
No, we're
digital
not.
calendar.
Yeah,
You'll
yeah.
confuse me.
Okay, so for 2015, our Wednesdays are, obviously, January 1st is on a Thursday, excuse me. So then you have January 7th, the 14th, the 21st, and the 28th.
So that would be, so the 7th would be the second Wednesday, the 14th would be the
Well,
third
no,
Wednesday.
the 7th, excuse me, would be the first Wednesday.
Okay,
And the second Wednesday would be January 14th. The third would be January 21st.
okay. Are those dates working for everybody? Joe?
14th, January 14th, and 21st.
All right, so then I'm gonna assume that the rest of us that we can figure out for February, or do you wanna go through February too?
Well, if you could, that'd be great.
All right, let's
All right,
go
so-
February.
So February, the first Wednesday is the 4th. Yeah, we're just going for the third and the, second and the third, okay. January 11th, and,
February, that's okay, we know what you're saying.
I'm looking right at it, February 11th and February 18th.
Does that work?
Yes.
Okay, let's do March and April and,
So March, your second Wednesday is the 11th, and it mirrors again February, and then the third is March 18th.
which will be the day after St. Patty's Day.
I will probably have a problem with both of those
Okay,
in March. But go ahead.
Let's put them on the schedule and then we
Don't
can
worry
always
about it.
revisit it, like, as long as we have a 30 or 45-day window.
okay. All right,
And-
okay, go ahead.
Okay, and then April would be, the second Wednesday would be April 8th, and the third would be April 15th.
And Easter is, it's later, I
The
think, this year.
Sunday, April 5th.
Oh, it's early,
Oh,
so it'll
okay.
work out, then it'll be fine. I'll bring candy to the person.
Okay, and then in May, it would be May 12th and May
We're
19th.
going too, I think we're going too far in advance. Things come up and we're talking months and months already.
Yeah, I know.
So I think if you go till March, that's good enough. You may have to have more meetings as you get closer.
All right, just, we'll put them down as tentatively. Let me ask you this, David, and I understand what you're saying. We have to all try to be flexible. You've already said you got some issues with March.
The second and third week of March, I'm probably not gonna be here. so-
Okay,
In town.
excuse me? Didn't hear the last thing.
I won't be in town.
Okay. Is it possible that we pick some other day since we're working into March to see if we can accommodate David? If nobody wants to do that, I understand that.
I just leave them the way they are. I mean, we've got, 4 months away.
All right.
Well, I mean, we're all gonna miss, we're all busy, we all
I
have
know.
stuff we're all gonna miss, so I think it's more important though that after we get the scheduling done, is I would like to talk about the process a little bit tonight. To
That's
talk,
an agenda item.
okay, and talk about, for example, if we already know that Dave can't be here on that date, I would think out of respect for everybody, we're not gonna do a vote that day. We're gonna set a date that we can vote on the items, we can have discussion, but our votes, we should know in advance, or we take all the votes and we wait till the end, and we do it at the last, the second or the last meeting or something, just so out of respect, we work hard, we're studying these things, we don't wanna do that, we know you're not here. And so that would be what we could talk about in the process, and then I think we'll be
That's a good
good.
idea.
If I could just interject back to the process, jumping guns a little bit here, but that is exactly what the last charter review commissions have done. As I said, they've dissected every paragraph, every section. If they, and again, you can mull this over, if they got to a section that this is language that is, like, from the Constitution, no, we're not touching that. That's identified as never coming back to that one. Then you come down to another section that looks like it needs to be re-examined several times. That's a comeback. And you keep coming back to that after you do research, questioning, however you wanna do it, and then you get to a point They're all your comebacks, for lack of a better way of terminology, reviewing that, determine the language you want, and then collectively you vote on the very big issues. There was, again, a chart was formed, and you made copies of the charter, made a double space, you could write in, you had a working document, not that little thing that I gave you, you know.
Is that still available on
Always,
Word version?
yes. Oh, yeah.
So you could get that for us for next week, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, great, that's a good idea, okay. Would I be correct that in the past, what they kind of done is said, kind of like assigning homework, okay, next week we're gonna discuss articles 1, 2, and 3, or 4, 5, and 6, and then, so that we can move through this, and, you know, we look at some of these sections, articles are pretty long, and some of them are
Right.
pretty short,
Right.
and we may be able to move a little
And-
quicker through those, okay.
You know, and it's sometimes we'll say, I wanna see what other communities, you know, do, or, well, you know how that goes. There's a lot of opportunity, a lot of things, different things to do.
Chuck, when you've been on it before, I think they said that the vote was at the end, everybody voted at the end, did you like that, to hold everything until the end?
In the past, on day one, all right, whoever's here, you know what I'm saying? What we did, now, you wanna see the records that are here, you take the charter one by one and you start reading every line, all
Right.
right? If one person's missing, it depends how many of those questions you're gonna have, you'll be here till doomsday. I know some people may miss it, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
But if one person is gone and there's 7 of us that said yes, no matter, you're not taking that person's vote away, and here, what if it was a 3-3, it'd be a difference, because you don't know whether that one person would break the tie. So I'm saying is basically, if one person misses it, it could even be me or anybody here, I don't think it's necessary to stall, because you gotta get this on by law by next year, am I correct, Dave?
Sure.
So, I'm just saying that if one person for some reason is not here, and we're reading Charter 18, blah, 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 and we have to take a vote on it, I think we ought to take a vote on it.
Okay.
Because, not saying we don't like the one person, even if I'm here or not here, you know, that one vote really wouldn't mean nothing if it's 5 yeses. You could say no, but it's still, you know what I'm saying? You're giving your expression, but it wouldn't change the vote. If it was a 3-3 tie, I could understand it, because maybe you'd say yes and it'd break the tie.
Sure.
But as long as it's, one person's gone and the majority rule, I think it, you know,
I'd like to throw something out for discussion, is one is, are you in agreement that June 1st is our tentative date of, you know, report back to council, so council has enough time to review for the charter amendment, you know, report to the public elections?
Or
So
we
let's
could do
just
it
use
even
that for
sooner.
right now,
All right.
okay? I think that, for one, I think there is more experience at this table than we probably ever had in the Charter Review Commission. And if you take, we have well over 150 years of experience with the city of Macedonia. I certainly do not want to waste my time reading this charter line by line. I think we're all smart enough to know where we have issues and concerns. And David may say to us, you know, go through the first 4 sections, bring your issues to the next meeting, and if you don't bring them, that's your fault.
Right.
Because I think we need to be a little bit more productive than that. That's my thought, but everybody can chime in. Then I do think that we need to establish a process on how we're gonna do a vote. If we are gonna discuss something, I don't think we should vote that night. I think the discussion should happen, minimum vote at least the next meeting to give people who might not be here or people time to process it and think about it and come up with something they didn't think about. Or, I have no problem with voting at the end either. I'm just throwing that out for discussion, but I think we should establish whatever process we wanna use either tonight or at the next meeting, so we all know. And certainly, if we know somebody has said, you know, Joe said, I can't be it back, Dave's already not here in March, we need to be respectful and not schedule any votes for those dates, as long as you've notified us in advance. I mean, if it's a date, we say, okay, we're voting that day, and something happens, you can't come, I'm sorry, you can't come.
That's a reasonable approach.
Okay.
Peggy, I don't know if you were on, excuse me, Dave,
No, that's fine.
at the one of the last 5 that I've been on, council refused to accept it, I had to take it to the Board of Elections. Why does council have to accept it?
That's an issue for the law
No,
department.
I'm just saying if it happens again this year, I'm just trying to,
Again, because I know there's been a lot of court cases, Ken and Dave, whether or not council does approve charter recommendations from a commission, or whether they go right to the ballot, that's a deemer question, certainly not a question for
I
us.
think the charter discusses that currently,
You have,
doesn't
I
it?
think you have to, and this, the way it's
Currently
written, it has
requires
to.
council to endorse it
Right.
before it to go to the
It
ballot.
either- right.
It doesn't stop a citizen from taking it to the ballot if they want.
Which has happened.
okay.
Which has happened. This was how the pro justification, this is on the last meeting, it was done as a grid, and everything they went back to, I showed the roll call of how everybody, not that that's important, but the minutes to reflect how the comebacks, how they looked at it. So, not that it has to be done this way, do you understand how I?
No, I think that looks good. And then the other question would be too, is Josephine or Chuck, whoever, once you voted on something, it couldn't be revisited, correct?
Well,
Or-
again, there was a lot of milling and a lot of, as the minutes reflect, always going back to once, they had some areas with it. Again, every charter review commission is different, how they approach something, and how they wanted to handle it, how they wanted to finish up the business at hand. And then, as Chuck has mentioned, you know, in case in point with the last one, and even the previous charter review commission, I don't know how many amendments or suggestions went to council, and not even half were approved to go to the ballot. That being said, you know, it's the way the charter's written.
I have a question. If everybody agrees, Section 8, it's gonna snow tomorrow, we all agree, we vote on it. If the law department says that's illegal, what do we do?
Well, that is always that issue, because if you read his letter, you always have to make sure the constitutionality is on point. I mean, that's not for, you know.
That's what I'm saying, should we have a legal vehicle sitting here, and if we right now decide, I've been through this, since Joe put me on years ago, this is gonna say it's gonna be green tomorrow, we vote on it.
I don't know that anyone has to,
Pardon?
no one has to be sitting here, because you're not making, it's not going from,
I think that, I understand what you're saying, Chuck, I think I do. I don't think we need to have a lawyer here, if that's what you're suggesting. I don't think there's money in the budget for that anyway. I think that if the law department raises a constitutional issue, you know, we're gonna have to address it at that point in time. And unfortunately, I respect the Constitution, I know Mr. Martin respects the Constitution, but opinions about constitutional are opinions.
You know what I'm saying, Dave, like I said, no, I'm just trying to warn you people, no. If we decide on something, we have to send it to the law department to write it up, am I correct? Okay,
I assume we do.
all right, if we say it's gonna be blue tomorrow, and we send it to the law department, if he comes back and says that's illegal, we gotta come back here and discuss it again.
Right.
That's what I'm saying, when will we know, when this committee votes, if legally we can ask the residents to vote on it?
Well, I think what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna send our recommendations to the law department. They're obviously gonna give us feedback. And if the feedback is, this can't be done, we're gonna have to come back and address that issue here in the commission. And sometimes objections of lawyers are to a very specific language, and maybe we can change that language. Maybe it's to only a specific point. You know, maybe we can get it to work, and maybe we can't. And if we can't get it to work, then we're gonna have to address that issue then. If we can, you know, modify to make it pass the law department's muster and our satisfaction, that's called a compromise, and it's probably a good thing. So, that's the way I think, that's the best answer I think I can give you at this point in time.
And
Yes,
are we required to use the, Mr. Demark for this process?
I don't think, he is our director, he is our law director.
Mm-hmm.
He is the law director for both council and the mayor and the city. So yeah, I think we are. I suppose we can go out and seek our own private opinions if we want to. prefer not to do that, and I understand that there's always, tension, and why don't we address that tension if it develops right now?
I'm not talking about tension, I was talking about the way that things have been written in the past that
Sure.
I don't think were very helpful.
Okay.
And strange language and.
I think that I think that at this point, the best that we can do is to address those issues if and when they arise, and if there is some issue that we think there's a problem with, let's try to address it then. I'm not saying that anybody has carte blanche over this. It's I think we have to find our way as it goes and hope for the best. But we have heightened awareness if there are issues that we see a problem, which is pretty weasely way of saying I don't know the answer. But, okay, any other discussion? I think if I can summarize, I think what we're suggesting is that we're going to try to discuss the issues, and then send them out to the law department for their formal, writing, and then we're gonna vote on them at a later date. Does that sound right? Is that what we've done in the past?
I think you're your order wrong.
Oh, okay. Well, when I say discuss the
You
issue.
you vote on what you think,
Right,
how you want, yeah.
and then it goes to the law
Well,
department.
the law department's gonna, every once in a while, you're gonna say, Jesus, this may be a little dicey, let's just run this by them first.
Okay,
Come back, oh, here it's cool, whatever, this is fine. Then you'll all vote, and then an ordinance will be prepared relative to that.
but we're not going to be voting on things the day we discuss them. We're gonna discuss them, that's the point I was trying to make. We're gonna discuss them, we're gonna go home, we're gonna think about them. If a person happens to not be at that meeting, they'll get the minutes from the meeting, they'll be able to review those, discuss them with other members before the next meeting, and then we'll have a formal notification of when we're gonna take the vote. Not necessarily the following meeting, the meeting following the discussion, but we'll agree on when those votes are gonna be taken. Is that good with us all? Everybody think that's fair? Okay. Josephine, do you have discussion of dissection of the charter? Do you have
I think
anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think Ms. Spraggins actually covered it very well.
Okay. The initial perusal of the charter, I think we've had this for several weeks, and we've been able to read it. I think it's fairly straightforward. I don't think we need to do that tonight unless
No,
people have
sure.
questions. Is everybody happy?
So for just purposes of clarity, so Peggy, you're not interested in having anything like this, where you have a document that like you have
Well,
space.
if everybody else wants, well, that's
No,
fine,
no,
I just
I-
wanna make
you
it, have
know,
you do more work, I
So
just
something
don't
like that, so if you
wanna.
wanted to write it,
Yeah,
if you
I
wanted
think,
to.
I think especially if it's already prepared,
Yeah, it's on, yeah. just-
I think that would be nice. And then
I could
we
even
each-
make it more spaces.
Joe, what do you think? Do you think we need more spaces? Are you happy with that?
No, do you like hard copies? It doesn't have
I
to be.
like hard copy.
I mean, that's,
You like
I actually have it on my iPad here, so I can.
Right.
Let me see what you're, did you
Yeah,
have
I put the whole entire thing on there, and if I wanna add to it, I can just.
And I
add
could do
it.
that, I could send that to you as well.
All right, so why don't
Do you
you
want- do you want
I mean, I think this is a great way to do it, because then you got it.
You could write
I mean,
stuff or-
otherwise you gotta type it in this way, or
Yeah.
add it in, or whatever. So I mean, that is a good way to do it,
So you'll have those for next
because
meeting.
everybody
I
doesn't
will.
have iPads.
People who wanna
Do you
be
have
on
a, do you have a password we can have?
I'm sorry?
Do you have a password we can have?
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, for the, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, those who wanna be on the EIS system will bring their iPads next week.
I have to tell you, it's one of those things that I have to keep looking at it, because when IT made it, it was like, really? Do you think we're getting into the rings?
All right, yes, Steve?
I wanted to ask Mr. Loparo, since he's been on so many charter reviews, were you sworn in on the other charter review committees?
Oh,
And why not now?
because I don't think he's able to come.
But we will do it eventually, just not today.
I don't know, Mr. Engle will have to handle that.
I will find that out, okay? And, send it Deemer, and I will get back to you on that, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Are you a notary?
I'm a notary, thank you.
You can't swear yourself.
No, I
Notary
can't.
swears all.
Right. Anybody else
You
notary?
could swear us in.
Ken's a notary. Aren't you a notary?
Yeah, but he can't swear himself.
Well, you can swear me in, I'll swear him in.
Okay, well, you could do that.
You could swear at each other too.
Yeah, well, we've done that
Did you
before
do
too.
that before?
And someone else is a notary, so we can do that, we'll work it out. We'll take care of that next week, next
We
meeting.
just have a couple more ground rules.
Shoot.
I just wanna talk about how we wanna handle it. Obviously, our meetings are open to the public, everything we do is open to the public, and I think that's fine, there's no problem with there. But I do think that we should talk about how we wanna handle comments from the public at our regular meetings during our discussion. Because I do wanna keep the meetings to 2 hours. I really don't wanna go past 6:30 to 8:30 unless we otherwise decide to do that. So, obviously, I think the public should always have a right to submit to the chair or the secretary any comments or questions they have, and then we can decide whether we want to discuss them. But I certainly don't want to be monopolize the meetings by a comment. You know what I'm saying? So let's kind of identify, or at least talk about, should we allow the public to talk at maybe the last 10 minutes of every, or designate a day for the public to comment, or specify, or what?
Excuse me, dear, in the past years I've been here, and here's all the notes and records of all the meetings. The public, if anybody sitting here has a question, they type it out and give it to Josephine prior to the next meeting. Nobody's ever said anything from the public, because they can go on for 10 hours.
That's.
So basically, according to, you can read all the minutes here, that back when I was 10 years old, if somebody in the public, or even a department head, other than this committee wants to say something, they will write Josephine a letter saying, I think section A, blah, 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 should be blue instead of green. They give it to Josephine. When it's time, if she's got 2 or 3, she gives it to the chairman. After we discuss it, and the chairman will say, here, I have this letter from Mayor Kutka. He suggests that this be done. We discuss it, we can say yes or no. That saves a lot of time.
So what do you guys think?
Joe, before we go any further, Josephine pulled out a.
We had a form in the past, last 4 charter review commissions, and it went out to the public. Number one, it was put in the paper. Now with the internet, we put something, and it's a recommendation for modifications to the charter, and people write in their recommendations, and it gets distributed to everybody, and it still can be done that way. I mean,
that seems fair.
I'm in agreement. I think you should be able to carry on your meetings, get through your 2 hours, because I think there's gonna probably be enough debate amongst each of us as we go through this process. And then allow for some time, maybe a meeting where if anybody has any concerns, they can raise them and we'll accept public comment.
there was a submit date, on this. I mean, again, these are all, plausible ideas. Submit date, and this one internally, when this is a little notice in the paper. You don't get that much public response, but you still have to put it out there.
Right.
And at every meeting, during reports, you'll say, we have this online, there's a forum. You'll keep reinforcing that. I'm sure you will.
I certainly think it's good to have public comments, you just don't want it to be monopolized to 2 hours, that's all.
So I guess the question is, do we wanna have, just by written public comment, or do we wanna open the meeting at the end of the meeting for 5 or 10 minutes to see if people have any comments that night? Or both?
Well, I think it's up to the chair. If the written comments for sure, I think are good. If you have time, it's 8:15 and you wanna take a couple minutes, that's fine. But if it's 8:40 and, you don't want to, then that's up to the chair.
Dave, can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Let's say today Josephine gets some kind of comment from Joe Dokes, a resident, all right? Our meeting is 2 weeks from now. Can we get a copy of that so the committee could look at the chart and say, well, Joe Dokes wants section 3 to go from A to Z. So at least when it comes up, at least we know 2 weeks from now that's gonna be brought up, and we check the charter, and we can see whether it's good or bad.
I think what
Well,
Chuck
yes.
is saying, he'd like Josephine to forward us any public comments that she got before the meeting, so we know what the
yeah,
problem
that
is.
would-
That's
yeah.
no problem,
Mhm.
we'll do that. And Josephine, she always sends out memos too, so I remember the meetings I'm supposed to be at. So that could be part of that, and that would work fine. And if everybody's happy with the, we'll kind of play it by ear. If we end 15 minutes early, we'll have some public comments if there's time, and if not, we'll maybe hold it over to next.
The other part of that, and I'll add, there was a little, like an addendum or to it, and it said, in addition to receiving the written recommendation, the commission may be scheduling interview time with you, meaning whoever wrote this. If, let's say, their paragraph wasn't clear, which quite often happens,
Okay.
call so-and-so and say, would you come in, we'd like a verbal explanation of what you're doing, so it's always on this. This could be morphed any way you want.
I think that sounds good. David, Tina, you okay with what we're doing so far? Ken, do you have any comments about what you think we need to do in this commission before we get started? I think then, I don't think there's really much on the agenda unless you all have other things coming.
Just one more thing, and then.
Mrs. Spraggins has one more thing.
I just thought about it.
Well, it's
No,
fine,
I
because-
thought about the whole process, and I made a
No,
bunch of
I'm
notes,
glad
so.
you are. We've got an
But
hour
I
and a half,
would
so
like to
don't worry about it.
suggest, at our first meeting, as we get started, we start going through it and making notes on what we think we want to talk about, but not requiring them, but just asking, sending a memo to all the department heads, if they would like to address the, commission, I would like to hear from them sooner than later. So either at the first or second meeting in December, whatever their schedules are, I would like to hear from them, but only if they want to come, and if they have an issue. If they don't, then that's fine, no problem. But just to offer that to the department heads for our one of our December meetings.
That sounds excellent. Are you suggesting that, I was thinking they may, like, parks people would come during the parks part, but you're saying you'd like to have a cattle call?
Yeah, I would
Anybody
like,
that's got a
I would like to
problem,
hear
wanna
from
hear
them
about it?
first to see what's going on. I mean, I haven't been around for 5 years, I'd like to hear from that. And I would, there's no sense in waiting. That's my thought, you guys throw your comments out. I'd like to hear from them sooner than later, and this way, as we're kind of getting started and stuff, it'll help us get in the mode of. And we may not decide anything, like if the parks person wants to come and talk, we may not decide anything, but we can take notes, get some more information, jot it down, and then, decide it.
I think your idea is probably better than waiting till we're at their section. If any of those people have ideas already, they've already got their ideas, and there's no reason we couldn't ask them to say, come in and present them to us, and then when we address their section, we have the opportunity to discuss it in more detail if we need to.
December is probably holiday.
I have no idea, I mean, you could check maybe,
The Santa delivered
oh, when
program.
is that?
That's
I don't even
gonna be
know.
that week of the 15th.
Well, what about the 10th? Do you think that might be a good day? There.
Maybe, yeah,
Well,
maybe.
yeah, let's make it convenient for them. Let's offer them to come either the 10th or the 17th, whatever their schedules allow. If they can't, they have to make a January, we can accommodate that. But just see if any, and then we'll take them first at the meeting, and then if they don't want to.
You're talking department heads first, and then
Right.
in terms of like this memo, in addition to the public, went to, all the committees of the city. It went to everybody. But you're right, now just aggregating it to the,
Yeah, could you ask that they put their wish
in writing.
That's when they come, before they come to the meeting, so that we have it in writing.
And they've got 5 years to look at the charter, and they know the ins and outs, so they should have, if they have an idea, it should be pretty specific.
They could put it in writing, and then they could come either the 10th or the 17th.
So like the chair of the BZA and chair of like civil service and stuff is, I didn't think about that, but that would
Yeah,
probably
see,
be a
this
good
went to all the,
idea.
all the.
Do you have all these people's email addresses, I assume, or most of them?
How many people is that roughly?
Well, in terms of the commission, that would be like, Peggy alluded to this, the chairman, but of all the commissions, you're looking at 5, 10, 15, 20, 25,
Plus department heads?
and plus department heads. And this also went to employees and members of council.
paperwork.
Well, you could just segregate it at this time, you could just have department heads.
I would agree, you can limit it to department heads, and you can say that everybody else that might have been communicated to, that they have to submit that, paper that
Right.
she showed us.
Yeah.
They just put it in writing, and then if we wanna see them, wanna hear their viewpoint, we can ask them to come in.
Okay.
Present it.
And I would guess at some time or another, we can certainly go to the general public and say, any and all comments as it relates to the charter, please submit.
I'm gonna put that on I think, and we'll put a little blip in the paper.
So they can submit their thoughts.
I just know the years that they had public hearing.
Yeah.
Nobody comes out.
No, but it's an offering to them so that if they have something that they'd like to say
Yeah, oh, no, absolutely.
or change.
Absolutely.
And of course, we can remember, remind people during the council meeting that they're watching, that, you know,
Right.
we do wanna hear from you, blah, blah, blah. Go from there, okay.
Put kind of a blank form of paper.
All right.
open it.
All right, anything else that we need to take in now? Tina, David, Ms. Loparo, Joe, Ken? Anything else? All right, so it would seem to me, Josephine, we missed anything? Seems to me that, we'll have our first meeting December 10th, okay? We're going to hopefully get some comments from people. I think it's gonna be a rather short meeting. I think we probably need to decide what we're gonna start discussing. And it would seem to me that we might wanna start at the beginning. Very good place to begin, I think